Cool.
This is a topic we have held off on, but it's something we probably drink the most of. Besides tequila.
This is Liquid Gold.
All right, where the hosts forget to think and the drinks are pink. Welcome back to Liquid Gold on a lovely springtime afternoon here in Nashville, Tennessee, high atop the towers here at Wedgwood, Houston. And we're right by Dozen Bakery, so you know we had to stop by there for some treats. We've got a baguette slung over our shoulders like a Parisian artist biking through the city. We have an old dog at our feet. We have a band rehearsing below us. There's a music session going on downstairs for, I think, one of the first times on this podcast, but we'll get into that as well as many things. It's a very special topic today. I'm your host, Mike Wolf, along with...
Hey there, I'm Kenneth Dedman.
Kenneth, how are you today? How's the allergies treating you? It's kind of a tough time of year.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Everybody's got advice about allergies. Everybody wants to tell you what to do about your allergies. No one will do anything for you, though. Like, if you want to help me with my allergies, freaking take my car and put gas in it or some shit.
The thing that people always say that I think is like, it would make sense, and I want to believe it because I'm a naturalist. People are like, well, take a little spoonful of local honey. Mm-hmm. In theory, it's like, oh yeah, because the bees, they're out, pollinating, they're sipping nectar, they're doing all these wonderful things, and then they will in turn cure your allergies. Doesn't really work though. No, it's kind of pseudoscience. But we're here to talk about picnics. We're here to talk about Rosé. This is the Rosé episode. We have a very special guest today, Todd Johnston. He's the beverage director at the Thompson Hotel, right down there in the Gulch, a bustling area of all kinds of different people.
Quite.
It's pretty incredible. But Todd, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. You are an amazing wine professional, and basically what I've noticed in working with you a little bit over there is most of the, pretty much any wine that you pick out, I'm going to like. So it's like we have the Barrel X Riesling.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah.
I love that one. You're doing a lot with Rosé. It's Rosé month.
Yes.
You're doing that at the Marsh House. We have Wine Wednesday going on.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about Wine Wednesday and some of that.
Yeah. So it's kind of just bringing something back that we had done in the past. In the past, we called it Conversations by the Glass, where we essentially just opened something fun up for a night of the week. And it was something that's typically only by the bottle at a higher price, and we would pour it by the glass for, significantly less expensive. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of talked about it. What I brought back is just making it simple, sexy wine by the glass for a affordable price. So each month I have a theme. And then each Wednesday, we open a bottle pertaining to that theme. April has been Rosé. Today is the last Wednesday of Wine Wednesday featuring Rosé, but I will do something fun next month. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So you can check that out at the Marsh House, and there's always great Rosés on the list. One of my favorite, the Grenelle.
Yes.
On the list currently.
It's a good one.
Kenneth and I have crushed bottles of that.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Even when we didn't talk about it on the show, we've had it. Like, we've drank it on the show.
It's one of those wines that, I've changed the by the glass menu many times over the years. I opened the property and it's been 6.5 years now, but Grenelle is one of the longest standing by the glass placements I've had just because it's such a good wine.
It is. Yeah. It's hard to beat. And there, you get in an area, Kenneth knows this working at Husk. We worked together there. I've worked throughout Nashville, I think at places that did cater to tourists, but also really catered to locals. So you see a mix of wine drinkers, be they tourists or locals. A lot of times with wine in restaurants, you get the tough to please people with wine. The Grenelle's the kind of wine that it's like, if you don't like Grenelle, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
it's
out.
Like strawberries and a picnic.
Yes.
And
I like the idea of that of having like premium wine at by the glass price. Like that's how I always like look out for like I don't know that I want like a glass of champagne if someone's offering that like real champagne by the glass. Every time I'll hop on it.
I mean, it's kind of for the love of it, because I'm not making much money off of this deal, but I'm showcasing really cool wine that I have on my bottle list that people don't often think about drinking or splurging on, you know? It's kind of interesting because I have a very unexpected rosé selection on my list, and some of them are $150 a bottle because they're, you know, a little bit more of a serious expression of rosé, which I'm sure we can get into later.
Oh yeah, I want to get into that.
But yeah, people don't think of spending $150 on rosé because rosé is one of those categories that you just want to crush on the patio, which I absolutely do too. But sometimes, you know, I want to think about it and kind of have something a little bit more elevated and unexpected.
Well, and that seems to be, as we did some research and looked into some booze news topics, which booze news will be coming up later. In some research, I noticed that that's where rosé is really growing, in that higher end and in the sparkling side. So it is nice when you find wines like the Grenelle, wines like Breze, however you say it. I love that one when I can find it, and it's great this time of year because you get the strawberries, you get the herbaceous notes, you get all these harmonious spring notes in so many of those wines that I think is great for this time of year. Now, do you look at it like that, or do you look at it too like, well, we also need to be having rosé in November?
Yeah.
You know, it's like early in the Thanksgiving feast, maybe.
I think it kind of has the same trend as sparkling wine or champagne. People think of it as a celebratory thing, but really, like, it's one of the most versatile wines that pairs with almost everything. And I kind of feel like rosé has that same trend in the sense of it's a seasonal category to drink it, but really you can drink it all year long because there are different levels and different, you know, expressions of rosé that are more appropriate for either the season or for what you're eating.
It seems to be one of the most versatile pairing wines, especially the sparkling, which that's another you know, really growing category and something that I love. And you brought a rosé today that we're going to get into in just a second here. I do want to throw out a shout out to Fishwife. They're not a sponsor or anything. We do love their tin fish. We were turned on to them by Vilda Gonzalez, a chef down in Charleston, South Carolina. We got to throw a shout out to her. She does amazing recipes and does some social media work for them. Apparently working on a cookbook. A lot of exciting things there. So shout out to Vilda down in Charleston. She does events. She will cater a party. She will cater a whole night with food and drink. You can find her on Instagram, Vilda Saski Gonzalez. And so that is VildaSaskiaGonzalez.
Yes, on my way.
Just go back. Okay, just use that little back button if you need to find her on Instagram. Check out all the stuff that Fishwife's got. We picked their stuff up at Dozens here in Nashville.
Best baguette in town.
Such a great baguette. Oh my God. And
you also got the baguette at the perfect time of day too.
Yeah, fresh.
You have like a 6-hour window after a baguette's baked.
Let's see if we can get some crackle on the mic. That's pretty good. It's got fish on it.
We can turn it up, right?
I think of rosé as a picnic wine. You know, not to be basic, but do you guys like
basic.
picnicking? I mean, we're three grown men talking about picnicking, but let's get after it.
Sure.
What do you like to picnic with?
Like in the parking lot? Yeah.
You could picnic in a parking lot.
Well, the thing about picnicking is that you can't drink wine in public spaces.
They're not supposed to.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Sure, shit can.
But I'm the person that is going to bring my stem to the picnic because, I mean, I haven't said yet, but I don't really drink out of stemless.
Yeah, no,
wine
I'm
glasses.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
They're just easy to travel with.
Yeah, no, I love it. But I'm traveling with my Zaltos.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And
of course you are.
I'm picnicking with my Zaltos.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you have like one of those stakes that you can put in the ground and that you can kind of rest your glass on? Have you ever seen those?
No, but I absolutely need that.
You need one. Yeah. They make these little stakes. You put them in the ground, and so the stake goes in, and then it's got this little curl off of it, and then you just like you put your glass down, and it's just like it
I
nestles.
can see it in my head.
Yeah, it's a nice little nestle.
Need that. It's on my Amazon list now.
I love one of my recommendations on a picnic is to go get Popeye's chicken the night before. Put it in the fridge.
Okay.
All right, so you got chilled Popeye's chicken. So you don't have to go through the whole thing of like, I'm going to fry chicken for a picnic. That's a lot of effort. Like, let's be honest. Frying chicken and doing it well, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of care and attention. I'd rather just go to Popeye's, chill it, then take my time making some sides, make a nice slaw, maybe some deviled eggs, maybe a nice like orzo salad, something like that. What else do you guys like to picnic with?
Oh, man.
I mean,
Kenneth wants to say
10
big
fish
blunts.
and baguette.
Yeah, 10 fish and baguette. That'll work
Cheese,
just fine.
charcuterie.
Cheese.
Yeah.
All of which goes with rosé.
Totally.
I think recently all of my picnicking experience has just been like grilling burgers in like a Target or Walmart parking lot.
Grilling. You're grilling at a picnic.
So yeah,
That's so manly.
I kind of like adapted this whole like like the charcoal starters for a grill.
Yeah.
Well, cylindrical.
If you're kind of just like cooking for one or two people, you can just use one of those in a cast iron over the top. And you can grill anywhere. Like it's very portable.
Yeah.
So
Walmart
I usually
parking lots.
I usually just keep one of those. Well, that's where I buy the charcoal.
Oh, okay.
And like
And you're like, screw going to a green space. I'm here.
Picnic in
I'm
the
just
lot.
gonna go to the parking lot.
I've done that so much that
Wow.
it got to a point where it wasn't like a weird thing. Like when people are looking at me, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Just hanging.
What are you looking at?
What's wrong with you? Look
Like,
at me.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. That's great. I will mention this had me thinking the Dickerson, that Walmart way out on Dickerson, north, kind of North Nashville.
There's that Lowe's.
There's a Lowe's next door. Enormous parking lot. Always interesting things happening in that parking lot, I have to say, I've noticed. But there is grass in that parking lot. Like parts of that parking lot have been around so long with nothing going on. Towards that back end, there's like grass growing. Because I've seen people playing football like on that parking lot. You never know what you're going to see in that parking lot. Let me just say that. That's a little insider knowledge for you here in Nashville. All right, we're going to open some rosé in just a second here. You can always, I forgot to mention, you can always check us out at liquidgold.show and check out all the podcasts that our producer Michael Eads has going on at weownthistown.net. And he's doing a lot of special stuff with the music show. He's premiering music, and he's been going strong with that for, gosh, what did he say?
He said 14.
14 years on the music show. Incredible. So do check that out at weownthistown.net. My first experience with rosé, as the train romantically billows in the distance, was at Grandma's house and going to restaurants with Grandma, where she would always order the white zin. So as a Somm, how do you view that, and how did that become, like, that became how America drank rosé in like the 80s and 90s, I think, but then it changed so much. But what's your take on white zin?
I think that's part of the reason why a lot of America drank wine, period. I think American palates started becoming accustomed to wine. A lot of producers started making wine that fit that palate, which I can't remember the statistic, but several years ago they found out that I want to say like 90-something% of the American people are buying wine and drinking it same day, rather than keeping the wine, stocking it, and pulling it whenever seems appropriate. So producers started making bulk, inexpensive wine that could just be crushed same day. And, maybe the American palate preferred something a little sweeter. So they started, adding sugar, adding things that made the wine a little bit more approachable. And then, unfortunately, a lot of really cool wines and expressions of wines like rosé or Riesling kind of went to the shits.
Yeah.
And
it affected the perception of it very much.
Affected the perception. And now people think of rosé as white Zinfandel because that's what they are familiar with, and that's what they've seen, their grandmother drink and their mom stock in the fridge growing up. And it's not inaccurate, but it's not what rosé is.
Right.
I think White Zinfandel created its own category. Zinfandel is a red grape.
Yeah.
And what is White Zinfandel? It's like the white version of a red wine, which is rosé in its essence, but not a great representation of what rosé is as a category.
To you as a somm, when people are like, oh, well, why do I like rosé so much? Or why do you like rosé so much? Basically, let's just get to the basic question of like, coming from a somm, like, what is rosé?
Yeah. I mean, rosé is a lot of things, but getting down to,
other than a lifestyle.
Yes, it's absolutely a lifestyle. But getting down to, technically what rosé is, it's wine made with red grapes, but only spends a little time with the skin. So, red wine gets its colors from the skins of grapes. You can essentially make white wine from red grapes if you don't macerate on the skins. But rosé is kind of an in-between-z where it spends a little time macerating on the skins to get that lighter pink hue, and then is fermented and made into wine. There's two main methods of making rosé. Direct press, where you harvest red grapes intentionally for making rosé.
Okay.
This is seen as a little bit more of a expensive and respected way of making rosé. And then the second most popular method of making rosé is called the Saignée method, or which essentially translates to bleeding, where it's a byproduct of a red wine. So think of a tank of fermenting juice for a red wine, maybe a little spigot at the bottom, drain some of that juice to concentrate what's in the tank for, a richer, bolder red wine, but take that juice that is run off from that tank, which is light pink or sometimes dark pink, and then take that to the side and ferment that. That's rosé making from the Saignée method.
Okay, cool. So you're fermenting it. They're fermenting the juice like a little bit and then separating it off, or are they pretty much separating it off before fermentation? So the fermentation is like thought of
fermentation.
This is supposed to be rosé.
Yeah. Well, fermentation is probably already starting.
Yeah.
But then, just to concentrate that red wine, it's pulled off, and it can probably spontaneously start to ferment on its own, because based on what's happening in that tank from the red wine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then there's fun ways to make rosé, like mixing red juice and white juice.
Yeah, do you see that at a high level?
Rosé is kind of like a lot of the time, like a lot of wine producers have like traditional methods for like their reds and whites, and they do the same. They do that the same every fucking year, and that's like what they expect of themselves, what the industry expects of them. But then like,
so the differences that you're tasting is climate and things like that.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of rosés, not always for sure, but like it's like a technique freestyle for a lot of wineries.
For sure.
It seems like it's the time of year that this is the wine that they're like going to try something different every year.
Yeah.
And
well, historically, it was kind of the wine that winemakers set to the side and made for themselves to drink. And it was never a category that was produced and sold or offered to the public. It was something that just the farmers did or the winemakers did, and they just like kept it for themselves and drank it at the table. That's
interesting. Yeah. It's almost like the
like hanger steak.
Like hanger steak and fish cheeks is a good one, because like I remember one year being down in the Gulf, and whenever we're down there buying fish at the different markets, I'm always looking for like grouper cheek, things like that. And I started to notice like it was really hard to get, because I had grouper cheek before and just loved it. And then I started to notice it was really hard to get. And one of the people at the fish market told me, they were like, well, we save those for ourselves. So that's why you can't get it.
Yeah.
That's interesting that's part of the history of rosé. Yeah. I love that. And with that, let's open some rosé. So let me go get that bottle. All right, yeah, we're gonna open this bottle. Love that sound. The band has started. All right.
Thank you, sir. It's nice in here.
So I did the. I already opened it. Did it in front of the mic. You know, got the nice sound effect. We have to mention this is a very Nashville moment as we have a music session going on downstairs, and the band. You might have heard them playing a little bit ago, but we saw a few incredible musicians loading in. One of whom is Luke Schneider, a pedal steel player. We saw him loading in a minute ago, and I just want to throw a shout out to him. He's got a few albums in my library. One of which is Altar of Harmony, was a solo record that he did that's solo pedal steel with like ambient textures. Incredible record. Do check it out if you're into pedal steel. And then he also did an EP with guitar player William Tyler, who was in Lamb Chop and does amazing guitar records on his own. They did a record together called Understand. So Luke Schneider down below us making some music.
Luke Schneider sounds like a pedal steel guitar player's name.
Definitely.
Like,
I'm
what
Luke
else
Schneider.
are you going to do in life with that kind of name? You're not going to be a teacher.
No. A pedal steel player in Nashville.
Maybe a gym coach.
Maybe a
Coach
fucking
Schneider.
winemaker. All right, we have an incredibly lovely pink-hued. Man, this has like a little bit of orange to it.
Yeah.
What are we drinking right here, Todd?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So this is a rosé from a producer that I've really liked for many years. They only became available in the Nashville market like maybe 3-ish years ago. I feel like it was post-pandemic. I could be wrong. But I always bought wine from them and got it mailed in for years. I kind of really like... So it's a producer called Forlorn Hope, run by a guy named Matthew Rorick, which he's really into kind of... I wouldn't put him too much into this like hipster natty wine culture. However, he was, in this new school California making minimal intervention wine. His thing is sourcing from unexpected places in California and using unexpected grape varietals. So I always thought that was kind of cool. His rosé is very interesting because, like I kind of mentioned, rosé is a category that is made and intended to drink current vintage. You want it to be bright, refreshing, crushable, approachable. And, you can get into this category of a little bit more of a serious rosé that can take some age and might get better with a little bit of age. I think his inspiration behind this rosé is a very famous rosé that can be very expensive from a producer in Rioja of Spain called López de Heredia. They make a Gran Reserva rosé that can take age, and typically it spends around 4 years in oak or concrete or whatever it is before they even release it, and then it spends time in the bottle for several more years before it comes available. This one, obviously, that is his inspiration behind it. Probably not as aged and highly sought after, but I really admire that inspiration because López de Heredia is one of my favorite producers from Spain that is making very classic expressions of Rioja. But yeah, so this is a 2018, so it has a little bit of age, especially considering that it's rosé. And I think that's where a lot of that kind of coppery, fun color comes from. But yeah.
Awesome, man. This is great. This is super unique, too, I feel like. Because what I first noticed was it had some weight to it.
Yeah.
Some real weight to it.
Viscous.
And then it does see some oak. Or did it?
I couldn't find information on that aspect of the winemaking process.
I just feel like there's a caramely kind of butteriness to it that you don't always get from like a rosé of that color.
Yeah,
it's like almost like the color throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then you taste it and you're like, oh.
Yeah. It did say stainless steel, but it didn't say anything about oak. But I wouldn't be surprised if it just used like a touch of neutral oak just to give it that like richness and kind of structure. But yeah.
Do you think that its age has anything to do with that kind of weightiness? Do you see that
Absolutely.
adding, like even kind of textural notes like that?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think as wine ages, it tends to, kind of broaden out and get more like breadth to it. Sometimes like you can lose acidity with age, but what makes a wine ageable, I think one of the most important factors of that is that it has a lot of acidity to kind of, take it through, its adventure years down the road.
To hold up.
Yeah. So this has acid, but I think the age, it probably has kind of broadened out and got a little bit more weighty and viscous on the palate.
So this is almost like
This is
the
rich. This
cool.
is one of the richest rosés I've had in recent memory.
Totally.
Great with this salmon situation we have going on.
Yeah.
I should probably ask a question before I start eating. Is this like the quirky but seasoned indie band that's like influenced by Zeppelin 4 or something? You know, like if he's influenced by that Lopez de Heredia, amazing name and wine.
Yeah.
Forlorn Hope. They've got skulls and flowers on the label, so like I'm into that already.
Yeah.
That could be a metal band.
Yeah. He calls a lot of his wines rare creatures because, like I said, that's kind of his focus. It's weird grape varietals. This is actually a blend of Portuguese grape varietals coming from California. So kind of unexpected, but definitely has that, Iberian vibe that you would see in Rioja.
Yeah. So when you mentioned that he's making wine from areas in California that are kind of unexpected, you mentioned these Portuguese grape varieties, but what are those areas that when you see a wine from that area, you're like, I haven't experienced that? Or are there areas in California that maybe everyday wine drinkers don't know about that are producing great wines, like Central Coast stuff or...
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the most familiar when people think of California wine is Napa and Sonoma, which obviously has a lot of expected wine coming from these areas. Cab being really big, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. But considering California as a Mediterranean style climate, you have an expectation of what grows there and what has grown there and what kind of expression you're getting from these wines. But if you go elsewhere in California, maybe like a little bit more inland, you can find weird things sometimes. There's Sierra foothills, I think, definitely hotter, but can grow Rhone varietals or more hot climate wines or grape varietals. This is coming from Amador County, which you don't often see or hear a lot, but you can find some weird Portuguese grape varietals there.
That's cool. Yeah, a lot of those parts of, say, like lush, not typical wine regions in California. It's just like a matter of like of farming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, say like Sacramento Valley, certain parts of it is like so lush, but that's also like where all like the world's strawberries come from, and it's worth that like that acreage is worth so much more because they can kick out this many strawberries, and then like wine gets kicked off to the side. Like
I didn't know that.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre to think about it.
Yeah.
But like
if they're doing strawberries,
they're
that would seem to
producing,
be a
like-
great place to
like-
do rosé.
I mean, it's like over
Probably.
like 60% of like America's food come from like California.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. There's all kinds of climates there. And, if you think about the Sierra foothills, maybe it's like too deserty and too dry and like hot. But if you're using good farming practices and you're potentially harvesting earlier to maintain some of that kind of freshness and high acid, then you can make pretty stellar wine out of it.
Pretty impressive. What are some of your favorite pairings for rosé? I mean, this wine right here, I feel like you could do a lot with this because you could do a pretty intense like fish, seafood dish.
I feel like this,
but yeah.
with the weight and kind of structure of it, you can do a lot of maybe even richer dishes.
Like octopus or
like octopus. I
you
would
could do
even
like
go
some
like
Portuguese
pork.
Oh,
Go like fatty and rich because this has acid that can cut through that, but also like the weight and body that you would want with that rich of a a meal. But classically, I kind of like the pink with pink. Like salmon is a very classic pairing for rosé, and I think it's, delicious, which I like this vibe, the tinned salmon. And
this is good stuff. This
I'm
has
thawing,
like
thawing
chilies
a
in
duck
it.
right now. I drink.
Oh, yeah.
I do duck.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Nice little like crispy fat layer.
When I did that duck for Thanksgiving, I bought 2 of them, and I forgot about it. It was in the freezer like last night. And
Perfect.
figured
Day off.
Yeah, threw it.
Talking rosé.
Moved it on down to the fridge.
You gonna grill it in a Walmart parking lot or what?
Possibly.
Maybe. So what are some other areas for you when you're out buying rosé or thinking about rosé? So we talked a little bit about Grinnell and the Loire Valley, and that's a really special area. But yeah, what are some areas that you love for rosé? France being probably the biggest producer of it, but
Totally.
what kinds of regions all over the world are you looking at that are great for rosé?
It's funny because my buying wine practices are very all over the place. It's funny. I feel like a lot of people that know me know that I basically only drink white wine. When I'm drinking, I mostly drink wine, and probably when I'm drinking wine, it's 95% white wine.
That's cool. I get it.
But yeah, no, I'm kind of an acid fiend. I want like bright and intense and refreshing. But I would definitely throw rosé into that 95%. Obviously less than just regular white wine, but I think, since it's chillable and bright and refreshing, that's definitely like what I like to drink.
Yeah.
When I buy rosé, I like to find out and I like to experience something that I haven't before. So I tend to lean towards something that's gonna be unexpected, like this. When I found out his inspiration behind this Forlorn Hope rosé, then I'm like, yeah, I'm down. And maybe I'll like try to sit on it for a few years to see what it's gonna do. But if I'm thinking something just like bright and refreshing and crushable, I typically buy wine by expressions of rosé made in Loire Valley.
Yeah.
Loire Valley is probably one of my favorite wine producing regions in the world, just because it's a colder climate. You got that classic French aspect of winemaking practices and restrictions and habits. But yeah, there's a lot of producers that I like to drink white wine from in Loire Valley, and if they make a rosé, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah. What is it about the Loire Valley? So there's the cold climate, there's the rich history, but I feel like while there's like a rigid kind of traditionalism to it, there's also seems to be also like newer people coming to the fore, newer ideas. We talked about the magic or the Grinnell, and we had talked a little bit last week at work about one of the things I love, the story of the Grinnell. They built all these streets below that city, where the streets below the city outnumber the streets above the city. And while that was like a wartime project for the French military, it became where all the wine would be aged.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of wine, just tons and tons of wine aging under the city, which is kind of romantic. I love that.
Wow.
But what is it about the Loire Valley that is so special? Because they're so aromatic.
Totally.
And they have such a character.
Well, it's kind of a unique wine producing region in France because first of all, it's, probably one of the more northern regions or, major regions other than Champagne. Champagne's probably the most northern, but it's actually decently close to Loire. And what's unique about the Loire is that it goes from the coast west to east rather than north to south, which most regions in France are going north to south. Most of them follow some type of body of water or are coastal. This is following a river that starts at the coast, kind of like the bluffs of Brittany, and go in, kind of separating into like 4 major quadrants, all, having a slightly different focus in what is produced there and what's, coming out of there. But being so northern, it's colder, so it has to be strategically planted to grapes that are going to do well in colder climates, which if you think about that, it's going to be higher acid grape varietals, which if you think about it again, it's going to be mostly white wine. Obviously, you can get tons of amazing red wine coming from the Loire Valley, but I think it's unique because it can produce such ageable, incredible, unique expressions of white wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, there's something about it. And then you also have Provence, known for rosés.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I don't know if to me, the ones that I've had over the years, like they're usually lighter. It seems like there's like a finesse going on to them, maybe a little bit of herbaceousness. But what do you feel about that particular region?
Absolutely. I think, I would say Provence is the most famous rosé producing region.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people caught on to that, and that's why, now it's blowing up. Even with the soccer moms and the Brentwood moms, they are asking for French rosé, which most of the time,
cheers to them. About time.
No, absolutely.
Oddly, I'm so glad to hear that.
Most of the time, they mean Provençal rosé, and one of the most famous and my favorite rosé producers is Domaine Tempier, which is probably, like one of the most premier producers of rosé. They make rosé and Bandol, which is an appellation within Provence, kind of like a upper tier when you're in Provence as a, category. But yeah, they have the ability to produce a little bit more of a serious rosé. Some producers out of Bandol age their wine in oak, so you get this richer texture, and they make them ageable. Domaine Tempier, I think, aged their wine in oak many, many years ago, but since then it's all concrete and steel. So they're kind of leaning into that like brighter and fresher expression. It has body, but it's so ragingly high in acid that it's just like, can do whatever you want rosé to do. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's always going to be dry. It's going to be herbaceous. It's going to have that kind of like terroir that you would expect from Provence, like olives and herbs. They tend to be a little peachy, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. So this is controversial. So we, sometimes we get controversial on the show. I got a couple hot takes. One hot take being that, is sparkling rosé just better than champagne? Because there's a lot of I know there's rosé,
sparkling
champagne.
Rosé, or like versus rosé champagne.
Is sparkling rosé just there's so many great affordable options.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a better move than rosé champagne.
I mean, yeah, but champagne is just champagne. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well that's good. We need an official Somm opinion on that.
I would hold up to like some champagnes, I guess. Like I'll give them that award. I'll give plenty of them an award for attaining
deliciousness,
a reverence.
Getting
champagne.
close to those heights.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is the methods that they're using?
Absolutely.
That are so key to that?
I mean, a lot of good sparkling wine around the world is using method champenois, or the traditional method, which is what they use in champagne. But I think there's just, there's more of an expectation of what champagne is. A lot of the times it's coming from assemblage, where they're, before they do the second fermentation in the bottle to get the bubbles, they're making hundreds of still wines that they then blend to get the right flavor, to get the right balance, the right structure, whatever they're going for. Then they bottle it and then put it through that second fermentation. So it's like, thought behind so many different still wines, aged and fermented in different ways to create one singular product. I think it's just a little bit, obviously there's like some champagne that's going to be lesser and some champagnes that's going to be greater. Same with sparkling wine. Like there's some really incredible sparkling wine out there, and there's some that is just, meant to be light and crushable. But
meant to be every day.
Yeah.
it reminds me a little bit, and maybe Chartreuse is the champagne of spirits, or champagne is the Chartreuse of wine, because they're growing these different things, they're picking them at different times, they're grabbing things from the wild, they're turning those into extracts in their own way, and maybe treating some of them differently. Maybe we're going to take some of these flowers and we're going to do an extract this way. Maybe we're going to take this thing and we're going to dry it a certain way, then make the tincture. Then we blend it all a certain way. Then we macerate that blend over here. Then we do this. So it seems kind of similar, where it's so like it's terroir,
end up in the final product,
but it's also mastery of like technique. So do you view what's going on in Champagne as partially or mostly like technique, and almost like, it's like we talked about the non-interventionalist style, which is just like, well, let's just see what the juice does. Let's let it be itself. It's almost like Montessori parenting or something. It's like, well, let's just see. We'll see what happens, and like whatever it turns out, it's gonna be beautiful.
I mean, it's hard to relate that to Champagne because it's so like rich in history, and everything is so structured there, like how they're growing the grapes and how the grapes are treated while they're growing, and then where those grapes are being sold to, or where they're being made into wine. And now we have this whole faction of grower Champagne versus big house Champagne versus negociant Champagne, and you can see the different stylistically differences of each of these types of champagne producers. And there's an expectation of technique as well, like how are you assembling these still wines to be in the final product, and what is your focus? Is it the grape varietal? Is it the blend? Is it the élevage? Or like how it's aged? Is it in oak? Is it in stainless steel? I think that part absolutely makes a difference, but it's very different and structured and expected from each producer, each area of Champagne.
All right, my other semi-hot take here, as it pertains to rosé wine in general, France. We're talking about France. I love French wines. You love French wines. They drive a lot of the rosé conversation, but one thing that I wonder, and I want to get your take on too, is like, it seems like American tastes and the way that Americans go towards wine, it seems like, there's more people like acidic wines, more people like food-friendly wines, more people are getting into rosé. Do you think that those tastes, those American tastes, are affecting how French winemakers view how they make their wine, how they harvest their wine? Does it affect their thinking? Are they like, we make our wine the way we make it, fuck you and your Trump, as Kenneth was saying off mic? But yeah, what's your take on that?
I think yes and no. I think yes, to an extent that they don't want to admit. I think, they see themselves as the traditionalists, the taste maker. Yes, the big boy in the room of all wine that exists. But the American market is crushing wine. So why wouldn't you want to tap into that? And if you have to slightly change practices here and there, then I think that's absolutely happening. But they don't really talk about it because they're not going to admit that they are changing things for the American palate. But yeah, I think it definitely happens. I know there's absolutely very traditional historical producers in France that aren't changing a thing. But at the same time, I think the perception of wine in American culture is very different than European. I think there's kind of this elitism thing that's attached to wine in general. And unfortunately, it's kind of dictating the perception. It trickles down. There's these very rich people that are told that wine is something that is to be associated with their class and with how much money they have. And they are told that this wine is good and this wine is what I need to be buying and spending money on. And sometimes it's an American producer that isn't good. It's just expensive.
Yeah.
And I think there are producers in France that kind of hit that same category. Things have changed historically, like over centuries, essentially. And now they're producing this wine that is supposed to mimic what these people are wanting and investing in and buying. So, yeah, yes and no.
Yeah, interesting. So, a two-parter. The first, does the growth in rosé and people's willingness to kind of get after it and crush it, does that surprise you? And then also, what has surprised you about wine and the way that people are drinking, the trends in wine, where wine's going? You know, if you're going back to when you first started to open stuff at the Marsh House and the Thompson Hotel and all that, what stands out to you? That's changed in the business, in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think rosé has absolutely changed, and people are starting to accept that rosé is most of the time dry and most of the time delicious. I think there are a couple things that are, maybe sad misconceptions about rosé in particular is people are, for some reason, very into light-colored rosés. I think they think that lighter colored rosés are going to be drier.
Oh, cool. I was going to ask you about the color of
which
things
is
because
very weird. I've definitely
heard people say that. Tell me that before. I've always been like, I don't know. Color is like.
Yeah, I know. It's, I don't know.
What if
strange.
What if you're blind and you wanted a rosé?
I mean, just put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
I've definitely had people order rosé and then I bring out the bottle and they're like, "Oh no, that's too dark," which is so strange to me. I'm like, this is
a lot of ways. I
promise you exactly what you want.
Turn down the lights.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a misconception. But other than that, I think rosé is absolutely, come back. Not entirely. I don't think everybody is hip to it. I definitely still get people coming in and, taste rosé. They're like, oh, it's not sweet. I'm like, yeah, rosé doesn't have to be sweet.
Yeah.
But wine in general, I think palates have changed, especially in Nashville. I think there's this natural wine movement kind of moving around, hitting big cities, and I think it's definitely hit Nashville.
For sure.
I think there's pros and cons to this movement.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I think that it has made wine more approachable, especially to, my generation, the millennial generation, which is great because these people are now spending money on things like wine, and they are getting into wine and learning things about wine that they formerly wouldn't have, and they like good wine. But at the same time, I think the negatives of this movement is that people latch on to hipster, natty, funky, tastes like kombucha, volatile acidity. It doesn't work. It's not good wine. But they're like, oh, it has a funky label. It's made by a local artist. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, it's small production. It's hard to get. It's, they only made 30 bottles of this. And, it's not good wine. And they think that, if it's funky and they have to think about it, then it's good.
Yeah.
But it's not. There's I think natural wine or making is a practice that's been used for a very long time. And, I'm throwing it back to France, but there's certain producers in certain areas that focus in minimal intervention and don't manipulate the wine, but they don't call themselves natural because they're producing very classic expressions, very clean expressions, but it's essentially the same. They're just not making funky kombucha.
Yeah. And they're like, well, if I called it something else, that's stupid.
They don't really just they just call it, I usually just assume most of them are natural or if they are, then a French, say some Beaujolais and stuff, they don't, they totally don't say that. But I know a lot of the ones that I'm getting are totally
region in France.
Are totally totally natural. It's not going to be on the label. It's just assumed.
Yeah, it's like,
But-
it's like the person who doesn't use deodorant. Like sometimes it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you're
it
like,
is.
sorry,
Hey,
might want to not be so natural.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get into wine? How did this whole journey start for you? Was it was it an ocean spray?
Ocean spray.
You're sitting
smoke?
there as like an 8-year-old kid drinking ocean spray, and you're like, man, there's something about this liquid.
It's kind of a progressive story. There was no like aha moment where like I'm going into wine.
Yeah.
I think growing up, I only ever saw my parents drinking wine. So it all. I think that kind of sparked a curiosity when I was younger. Also, I think it has to do with my perception of wine. I think wine is this kind of living, breathing thing. It's a captured moment in time and place, and you are drinking that captured moment, depending on what you're going for, the style of what was intended for that experience to be had. So, rewind. I grew up. My mom was really into gardening and growing things. So I think that very much kind of relates to my perception of wine, because I've always been interested in plants and how things grow and how you can make them grow a certain intended way. And wine is also like this very natural thing. It's things that have grown from the ground, and then you're harvesting that essentially, sexual organ of this plant. And then it goes through this natural process, which is fermentation, and then you just bottle it, and it is alive, and it's changing in the bottle until, it essentially dies, or you drink it.
Yeah, the bottle gets empty. Yeah.
But yeah, I worked in restaurants, starting in high school and going into college, and I was very much that business student. I immediately declared accounting as my major going into college, and going into college, it's the first time that you're independent and you learn a lot about yourself. And the more I got into accounting, the less I liked accounting.
Yeah.
And by the time I graduated and finished, I got a job right out of school, and I hated it. I was burnt out, wasn't my thing, so I went back to restaurants. And by this time, I had kind of gained a decent appreciation for wine. And then I decided that I want wine to be my thing. And cool. I moved back to Nashville because I'm from Nashville. And
What up?
yep.
We got a couple of them in the room. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it never happens. But that was the time that City Winery was opening. And I got hired as the lead somm there.
Oh, cool.
And then I eventually took the beverage director position there. And then I left to open the Thompson, and here we are.
Awesome. Awesome. For people that are interested in getting more into, restaurant people that are interested in getting like certification, getting more into that side of things, what would you recommend?
Yeah.
As like a path?
I think being around wine is really important. I have studied with the Court of Master Sommeliers, and it's funny, intro, in my opinion, an easy step. But I was thinking from the perception of someone that's worked in the service industry for many years. And one of my friends that, this was several years ago, she runs a flower shop in town, and she was like, I'm thinking of doing it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. It's so easy. Go do it. And she's never worked in restaurants, so she didn't have that base expectation or knowledge that, I would have suggested. And she didn't do well. She didn't get it. But I think, being around it is important. But I think at the same time, that's how kind of people gain an appreciation or passion for it. I think if you choose that direction, there's a lot of reading, a lot of self-studying. But I always tell people that, you can read a textbook or book all day, but you really have to get in there and taste the wines and taste what you're learning about.
Is wine a thing? So we talked about this with coffee before, and it just fascinates me as the train continues to billow outside the window high atop the studios in Wedgwood, Houston. I know,
every time.
The reason I say that goes back to when I was in radio in Denver. We would say hi atop the tower above the old spaghetti factory. It was kind of a joke, but we were on the third floor. We were on the third floor, but we would say hi atop because it was just nice to say. Made you feel like you were in the studio on the top of a building. Anyway, where was I? We've talked about this with coffee before, and it's fascinating how, like with coffee, if there's banana trees growing nearby, it's going to affect the taste of the coffee. The coffee is going to have banana notes. If there's a cherry tree nearby, if there's apples nearby, if there's blueberry plants, you see it all over in the world of coffee. Do you see similar things like that in wine? Or is it like, well, this region's known for, like we talked about Provence a little bit, the herbs that they're known for in that area, which is plays a role in the soil in that area and what it can produce. Do you see that with wine, that certain tasting notes are from, that region because that's what grows there? Do you see that in wine as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that
stuff's fascinating.
One of the biggest things about wine as a category and, alcohol. It has to do with the microorganisms that live in the land and the soil that these vines are growing. These microorganisms change what lavender and Provence tastes like. And so they're going to do the same thing to the vines of the grapes that are growing there. So yeah, it's a wild thing. And obviously like microorganisms that like around the world are going to be like vastly different in certain places and certain locations and microclimates and all of that. But yeah, it's such a fascinating thing about wine.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected.
And speaking of everything being connected, we have to turn things over. You ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and the time has come for chow chow chow.
Burr.
Booze News with Kenneth Dedman. The wine is pink, but can Kenneth keep drinking it?
That's good. Good. I will.
Kenneth, your glass is empty. Your mind is full. What's boozeworthy out there?
French fire season has just started, my friends.
Oh, wow.
And the Bandles is on fire right now. Like something like I don't think they didn't mention anything expensive. It's probably just like forest, but like it's spreading into Spain. First fire of the season is like the earliest fire season has ever started in France. Reminding me
Thanks
of like 2021 in California when it started right around the same time. It was like late April, or 2020 was. It was like late April and May. Northern California went up pretty freaking bad.
The world's on fire, literally and figuratively.
That's crazy.
To 2,500 acres so far. Earliest fire season on record. Okay. Ohio winery. Luvabella Winery in Ohio. Coincidentally, maybe you know this, Todd.
I don't know about a lot of Ohio wine.
Before Prohibition, Ohio and the state of New York were the largest wine producers in the United States.
I did know that about New York. I didn't know that about Ohio.
And anyone in Ohio, I swear, dude. When you meet someone from Ohio, they remind you that they're from Ohio, like over and over, like.
And they talk about this.
Yeah, that's like one of my fun facts. It's like kind of like how I tell them to fuck off. It's like, oh, hey, fun fact about Ohio. Before Prohibition, fucking wine. All right, Luvabella Winery, it's like 80 miles southeast of Cleveland. Who makes a Concord grape wine that they've been calling Purple Rain. Concord.
See, that's not even wine grape. That's
off dry. They're claiming
Labrusca. It's a different species.
Off dry. They're claiming.
Yes, I don't know.
13.25% ABV. That surprises me
dry
for Concord. Concord grapes. Yeah. I guess like
No, totally. It's called chaptalization. They're adding sugar so that it can ferment longer.
It's a $8
They're
bottle.
capitalists? Jesus.
Where was I? $8 bottle. Luvabella Winery is being sued by Prince's estate for selling wine using his image.
I feel like their
Purple
estate
Rain.
is exhausted. They're always having to sue people. Like, you can't,
Make money off of it if they can,
Yeah. I mean, they got to do it, but it just seems like
They need
exhausting
to
keeping up
he
with that
blew all
estate,
their
I bet.
money, right?
That's the
Blew it
word.
on, blew it on pills.
Yeah.
That's sad.
God bless him. Rest
Yeah.
in peace. We love Prince.
Dude, he didn't hurt nobody.
No, he played basketball and was the greatest guitar player to ever live. So, in my book, he's a hero and always will be.
That's like separate for like
Plus, he played every
like
instrument. He was like a
separate
phenomenal drummer.
identities as a musician. You know, like when I served him, he didn't drink.
He doesn't
Wow.
drink.
He bought a bunch of champagne for everyone that he was with. Kept a full glass, but then when everyone wasn't looking, he would like dump it in this fica tree right here, and then come to me he knew that I was watching him do that, and like I was cool. It's not like I was.
He's got a show to do later that night. He's probably got a basketball game after that, and then he's going to cook everybody pancakes.
I've heard of
I've told
him.
you about that, right? Have I told you about waiting on Prince?
I don't think so.
He came in.
I'm glad for the sidebar, though.
He came in and he had a cane, like a
cane.
gold cane,
Of course he did.
and he just like hands it to me. It's like champagne. And I was like,
What a way to
take his cane, and I like put it behind the bar. I like set it down, and I'm like, he gave me his cane.
Whatever you want, Prince.
Oh my God.
Like he hung out. Like there were some like lower level like celebrities with him at the time, but I don't really remember their name, and it didn't matter. Like
They're unimportant.
it was just his thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was dumping the champagne out. There's like 5 bottles or so of like White Star or something like that.
He was probably, I don't want this tree to die.
And he just rolled out. Like at some point, he just decided like there was no method or anything. He didn't like say like, y'all feel like going and getting burgers, or are y'all hungry? Like nothing. He just like walked out. And like everyone followed him.
Yeah.
Then his manager comes back. He's like,
Did we pay?
he's like, let me get that cane.
Oh, the
I was
he
like,
almost
I was
left the
"It's my-"
cane.
He gave me the cane. He was like,
Wow. You almost
he was like,
had
wait,
the fucking cane.
no.
Oh.
I
Well, you
totally
were pretty
didn't.
close.
Like,
He almost left it.
What if you did though?
God.
I don't know.
damn.
Like,
That'd
it
be
was,
So close.
it was
even
before
better.
eBay, but it would have gone likely immediately to something like that.
Yeah.
Not that there weren't any online auctions at the time.
So I looked into some rosé stories, and I just want to mention some interesting headlines that I saw. The girl who always drinks rosé wants you to know these 7 things. That's from Elite Daily from 4 years ago.
Yes,
Okay.
I can't wait.
Then there's another one. Paul Edwards in the West Australian, real men drink rosé. All right. And then Vice had a story back in 2015. Drinking rosé isn't just for girls anymore, bro. Bro was in the headline. That wasn't my bro.
Cool.
An Eater article, rosé is exhausting in 2017. That was pre-pandemic.
What?
Like, they don't know what exhausting was. Rosé is not exhausting. And then what was another one? Oh, another one that I do want to talk about and get Todd's take was wine lovers go wild for TikTok trend of infusing your glass of rosé with sliced jalapeno peppers.
What?
That's
You mean like garnishing it, or like
You just, like,
taking the
infuse
rosé,
it.
like throw it into the fridge overnight with some jalapenos,
or
I
like
feel like you don't even need it with jalapenos.
yeah, I think you could just wait
like-
5 minutes,
Yeah.
strain it out, and it's going to be spicy. What do you think about it? That's kind of blasphemous, right?
That is blasphemous. I mean, you know, I have opinions about people doing things to wine. I think mimosas kind of fall into that category, but at the same time, with mimosas, you're not drinking good sparkling wine most of the time.
Right.
But back in the day, I used to pour Henriot champagne bottomless during brunch.
Jesus.
Yeah, and that was kind of like fun, sexy champagne
Yeah.
bottomless, but people didn't get it. People are like, oh, it's bottomless mimosas.
Yeah.
So I served so much champagne with juice on the side.
Oh, okay.
But, you know,
Would you only do the juice on the side, or would you add it in?
No juice on the side. They can do it themselves.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I like that.
But that happens all the time. You know, people are like, I feel like most of the time they're not going to spend money on the wine that they're doing things to.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, drink what you want to drink. I don't care. Like, I'll drink what I'm going to drink, and it's going to be good rosé without jalapenos.
Yeah, it's just a dangerous precedent, I got to say, because it is expecting, I mean, it's fine, obviously. Do what you want.
Yeah.
But it's I think for their palates, they're going down a dangerous road because you can add hot sauce to give anything pop. It's almost like overusing cayenne.
Yeah.
Like you can put cayenne in anything and not notice it. You just want to give it a little pop.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it with MSG. But like
MSG.
That's you're on a tightrope then. You got to know how to use it. You got to know but to have, if you want everything, like I need everything to have like a jalapeno pop. It's like, well, maybe you should just calm
chill
down.
Out, yeah.
Calm down.
I think putting ice in your wine.
Eat some grits.
Sounds like someone wants like too much control. You know, like they like jalapenos, but they want everyone else to like jalapenos as much as they do.
Yeah, I think putting ice in your wine also falls into this general practice, which I absolutely see often.
Sure.
Which, you know, whatever. If you want to water down, if you want a little colder, if you want to shock your palate, then fine.
Yeah.
You do you.
And since we talked about, different producers mixing red wines and white wines to kind of create their rosés, what about people doing it themselves? That's a dangerous business too.
That is a dangerous business.
Do you see that? Is that on your radar at all?
No, not really.
My brother does
I've
it.
seen people fuck
great.
around and let's mix it just to be funny. I don't think.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like when my next house guest, I'm gonna just pour regular rosé, but I'm gonna say that I made it or that I mixed it and see where it goes. I'm gonna see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'll take it too far if I can.
All right, I hope that's me. He's coming over for that. What else you got? What else is booze worthy out there?
Oh man, Family Sue's Cruise Company. For storing man's corpse in a drink cooler for 6 days where it decomposed.
In the cooler?
Oh.
I feel like I guess that...
Florida Cruise Company. There you go. Back to Florida. Stored a dead patriarch's body in a beverage cooler for 6 days. This would be Celebrity Cruises Incorporated.
The Florida Files.
Just to keep it fresh, or because they weren't...
So every cruise ship does have a operating morgue. They have a morgue because people
dies. Yeah, you can't just keep it out in the open.
Yeah, people die on boats all the time. Some would say it's like an accelerated if you want to die, if you want to accelerate your death, you just go on a cruise. Goddamn. But I guess all the things to go wrong on this fucking cruise ship, their morgue was out of order, so they threw him in.
I'm frightened of cruises, man. I'm not going on a cruise.
I'm thinking a lowboy or something like that.
Oh God.
Why don't they just
sort of
a lowboy
in a body bag in a lowboy,
body bag in a lowboy? That's the name of your rap album,
dude. They forget the worst part. No shit, they forgot. They forgot about the body.
Oh my lord!
So when they docked, the woman's "Where's the body?" and all the workers they docked and they clocked out and went home. And the wife is still deboarding and looking for her dead husband.
Oh shit!
And so they had to search the building, and that's where they found. That's where they found it. Yeah.
Wow.
Fucking sue.
Whatever happened? Just putting people overboard, right? That's that was an honorable way to do it.
That's what I was thinking. Why wouldn't you have just tossed that dude like
a burning arrow?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somebody could sing a song. Wow.
There needs to be some sort of maritime law where you can do that, or it should be standard. You just get rid of that body on a cruise. You signed a waiver when you got on this boat. But his body was so badly decomposed that they couldn't do embalm him or anything like that.
Was there a lowboy not working either?
Skin was green. I mean, it's I think a morgue. It's got to run like below freezing or
Below
something. I don't know.
temperature.
Yeah, you got to put a body on ice if you're gonna preserve it. Think of like a fishmonger.
Topics I didn't think we'd cover today. That's one of
The
them.
one thing that I've always learned from like fishmongers, like over the years, is like there's the idea of fresh fish is often like kind of an illusion, because there are times that the fresh fish that you're getting has been like on ice, but on the docks for 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes, on ice, like completely submerged in ice. So why can't you do that with an old man? Okay, Lubbock, Texas.
Birthplace of Buddy Holly. Wow.
Dairy, a dairy farm explosion just killed off 18,000 dairy cattle.
I saw that. That is wild.
Sad.
That is. Can you think like 18,000 people is like a big concert, or
That'd be like a
18,000,
Bridgestone, right?
Yeah,
Roughly.
where the cows are like fucking 1,500 pounds.
It's insane.
Police say, or like the investigators say that like so like I don't know what do you call this kind of like operation? It's like it's a factory basically, where these cows they're not like free, like all the dairy cows that I've ever been to. Luckily, from like the restaurant industry, they're like really well treated cows, and like they're hand milked and shit. But then like the milk producing facilities are like I don't know, like you go to the PETA website if you wanted to and look this shit up. Yeah, they're raised in stalls, and they live in stalls. So like they have like this vacuum machine, like the whole area where they live. It's just like milking them, feeding them, and then there's like this underground like vacuum apparatus that basically cleans all their shit and like the methane out of the air. And when it fails, the whole living area fills up with methane. In theory, this is what they think happened, and just a little like electric spark, the whole fucking thing exploded. Unfortunately, it's like 18,000 dairy cows that just like sat there and like suffocated from like smoke, or like the lucky ones were the ones that it got to explode.
Jeez.
I did the math on that though. Like, yeah, it's like
Topic number 2. I didn't
really
think we'd
like
get
these
into
are like at least they're not like cattle, like beef cattle, like they're dairy cows. So they're you think like in a way they're like employees, like they're
punching in and out too.
I guess like a dairy farmer, a corporate large like facility dairy farmer would tell you like these are the lucky cows. See, they're not gonna. We're not making beggars out of them.
They got a job to do.
Yeah. We gave them a job, and they're doing it.
They feel a purpose.
They're not happy.
They're like, no, they're not happy.
Happiest fucking cows. Like pound for pound, though, it's like I want to stress this. Like pound for pound, 18,000 like dairy cattle is equivalent to 150,000 adult human beings in North America. 150. Imagine 150,000 dead people at once. It's crazy.
I thought this was the Rosé episode being about springtime.
No, it's Booze News. That was
right.
Rosé was a few minutes ago. All right, let's just bear with me.
Okay.
Oh boy. Anything else booze-worthy out there?
I think that's it.
One other thing I got is do pink spirits really drive sales? And this is driven by continued growth of rosé wine as well as visual appeal in the glass and on social media. The color pink has spread its way across clear spirit categories. This article comes from 750.com, and this is from philosophies of rosé all day to panic over rosé shortages. It's safe to say that the color pink has become a fixture in the wine industry. According to IWSR Drinks Market Analysis, rosé wine sales volume grew by 118% from 2015 to 2020, and it's expected to increase by almost 70% from 2020 to 2024. But now, combined with the rise of flavored vodkas, a gin renaissance throughout Europe, and the Instagram-fueled drive to capture and share beautiful cocktail images, the drink pink trend has spilled over to the spirits industry. pretty interesting. So you'll be doing Wine Wednesday in May and stuff, and that kind of goes through the summer.
I will. I haven't released what the May theme is going to be, but last minute I kind of switched April. April was going to be Loire Valley, but I switched it to Rosé because I feel like April and Rosé, you know?
Perfect.
So I think I'm going to do Loire Valley for May.
Oh, killer.
Yeah.
Killer. Can we break that news right here?
Yeah.
This will
why
air
not?
on Friday.
Yeah, I guess
There it is.
I'm committing.
There it is.
Yeah.
We're breaking the news. You can text me, by the way, if that changes
No,
between now and Friday.
I'll do Loire. I love Loire.
The
like I
Wine
said.
Wednesdays at the Marsh House for May, we're breaking news, will be featuring the Loire Valley. So we've talked about it on the show. Known for aromatic wines, known for Cab Franc, known for Pinot, known for what? Gamay, all
Sauvignon
kinds
Blanc.
of stuff. Sauv Blanc.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of really tasty aromatic wines on display for that. Last thing, so I got to give a shout out to Liquid Gold listener Christine. Sent a menu in from this speakeasy, in which, are you a speakeasy if you say speakeasy on the menu? I'm not so sure. But it was a speakeasy in New Mexico that they found at like the bottom of a liquor store. Good place for a speakeasy, a lot of liquor available. And she sent me the menu, and it had some really kind of fascinating, but maybe too complicated, but also kind of cool cocktails. So one was called Hola Gato, and it's Cîroc's infused vodka, Midori melon liqueur. We all know Midori. Liquid Alchemist passion fruit, fresh lemon and orange, Prosecco. That one sounds good, but then there's some really...
What is the Ciroc flavor?
Right, they don't want to mention that.
Oh, okay.
Can you name Ciroc flavors?
I mean, I just know that there's coconut.
Not bad.
I don't know why I know.
Here's
there's
one.
coconut.
I imagine they have a lot. There aren't a lot of companies that have a lot of flavored vodkas now. I imagine when they do have flavored vodkas, they go. They're gonna. You want to
Gotta
produce
get
a lot of
wild,
them.
Yeah.
There's one that's Michter's rum, house banana brown sugar, Angostura chocolate, topped with fresh nutmeg and smoked hickory. These are pretty involved. That was kind of the point she was making. She was like, "What am I supposed to order at this place? The cocktails are so complicated."
Weird.
This Good Soak at Ojo, and that's in reference to Ojo Caliente, this amazing place out in the middle of New Mexico, middle of nowhere. But this is plantation pineapple, pinion rum. That seems super interesting. Coconut cream, muddled avocado, cucumber, pineapple juice, lemon juice, served with crushed ice. So,
Okay.
and so I'll throw out a shout out to Founder Speakeasy. They're doing some really interesting
Sounds good.
stuff. But is this something that when you guys are out and you're ordering cocktails, do you see cocktails like this and you're like, I don't know, it's like too much going on? So does it turn you off?
I mean,
There's too many ingredients on a
I
menu.
tend to
Does
want
it turn you off?
something simpler.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd be interested to try those.
Yeah. But it's like, are you stoked?
No, I'll try them.
Right.
But
That
They
that
have
was
to be
sometimes when I
very
start
well
seeing too
executed.
many, start seeing too many ingredients, I think that they like messed up at some step and they didn't want to start over, so they just started adding more shit. And that's a real thing that happens a lot of the time.
Yeah, usually when it's like, what does this need? It means you add something.
Yeah.
When a lot of times it's like, maybe take something away.
Yeah.
Or don't
Edit,
split
edit,
spirits.
edit.
Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like when you tell
tone it down, chisel it.
when you tell a lie, and then you like tell a lie to cover it up, and then you just tell a web. You're caught in a web.
Yeah.
Web of lies.
Of lies in the
That's
cocktail.
good. That's the good name.
a good
That's a good
cocktail
cocktail name. All right.
With 8 ingredients, and then but it's really 3.
Yeah. It's also more opportunity to fuck it up, you know?
Right. Right.
So
the
it makes me
more
nervous.
things that are stored in delis too, then you got to make sure the deli maintenance is key, and you're opening yourself up to
You go in there.
mistakes.
Where you be like the cocktail the cocktail guest that like it's like open up that cooler. Let me get a look at there. What's the date on that? Like
This is
you're like running your finger
Let me
around
smell
the
that
bar.
deli.
Like, it's like the worst guest ever.
That would be bad.
Just goes behind
Wait,
the
I don't
bar.
recommend
like, he's
doing
like,
that.
oh man, like gotta throw down
Like,
these
sir, we're gonna call the cops.
these rodent monitors. And
Well, this was a lot of fun. Todd, thank you so much for
Yeah,
being
thanks
here.
for coming
Our
out,
guest,
Todd.
Todd Johnston, the beverage director at the Thompson Hotel. Go see him at the Marsh House. Come up and see us at LA Jackson. We're having a lot of fun over there.
Too much fun.
Go see Kenneth at Husk. And as always, follow us. Give us a rating. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Check us out at the website liquidgold.show. Go back through the archives. We mentioned Calvados today. We have an episode on Calvados going back probably about 3 years ago or so. We've got an episode on the Jack Rose, I think, that we did a couple years ago. So there's a bunch of topics that we've covered over the years. So check out the archives over there at liquidgold.show. And as always, you can check out everything going on with We Own This Town at weownthistown.net. And Michael will be premiering new music, I'm sure, on the music show. You might even hear some of the session that was going on here downstairs featuring local pedal steel great Luke Schneider. So thanks to Jess Hash for the logo and the t-shirt. And we're glad Pablo's doing better. And shout out to Jess Backus down in Charleston. Upright T-Rex music for the tunes. My name's Mike Wolf. And he is...
I'm Kenneth. We're out of here.
Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next time on Liquid Gold.